Hi, thanks for tuning in to Lloyd TV. Today we're going to be talking about The Drowned King, which is my book that is about to come out. This is a system neutral module for tabletop gaming, for like Dungeons and Dragons, Shadow Dark, whichever system you use. This is a primarily narrative module. And just to go through the breakdown right here for the whole book looks like. We've got the player section, Tailmaster section where you have the full history of the war right there, and then the three major acts. So Act 1, the island, Act 2, the crown, Act 3, the katana, leading up to the final boss right there. And then you have the appendices, including the body tales of Castron Vale, which is the optional adult content, and then a preview of my novel, Chasing Musashi, which is the one that I'm now about to start working on full-time again. We have one draft done of that one, and then a second draft we're going into. All right, so today we're just going to focus on the player section. This is the section anyone can read. It'll just kind of get you situated in the story, and the characters, and the situation, and the mission, and just kind of what this project looks like. We're also going to be talking a little bit about AI use, which I discussed in the introduction. I'm trying to do this responsibly. This is new technology. We're still getting used to it, and I just want to do it in a way that doesn't step on any toes while still enjoying the technology and bringing value to my players and my readers. All right, so we're going to start with the introduction right here. All right, so starting off, just kind of points you where you need to go. So we have the player section. This is the only one they would read right here, and especially the 7 characters. So they're choosing which character they want to play. Now, you can also read this as a novel, essentially. The way it's written, it's very prosy, very descriptive. It doesn't really read like a normal module, but there's a lot of branching paths. But you can still read it straight through as a continuous story, and it would make sense. Basically, then you would just read the player section, skip the Tailmaster section, and then you can read C through H of the appendices. Now, for Tailmasters, read everything. Very important, the war. I have about 25 pages without a single picture that just cover all the years of the 10-year war, everything that happened, the supply line issues, ports captured, various incidents that happen. Very realistic war. We're going for like a Hemingway level of realism, or like a George R.R. Martin level of realism. And then, yeah, and then the overview. That'll just be the straight overview with all the spoilers. All right, going right in. So here I'm just explaining the how this started out as a live tabletop game, and that I chose to adapt this as a system-neutral narrative module. So that means you still have to figure out, the monster stats and all that stuff. And the Tailmaster figures that out. Players don't have to worry about that. The Tailmaster will explain that. So I just took all my campaign materials and put this together into a form that would be easy to read, easy to navigate. Now for the artwork. So every single picture in this is AI. But here's the thing. All of it's public domain. There's a few things here. So, so I take no credit. I did not create these. I am not the artist. I can't draw for shit. I can write, I can play music, but I can't draw. So this right here, basically what I take credit for is the direction and the curation. I chose from thousands of images, just going through, picking them, and some of them took a lot of different iterations as we're moving through them. The cat's cradle especially, I think that was about 200 iterations to get that picture right. And this is part of a long tradition, like Shadow Dark, old school essentials, where this isn't me just imitating a single artist. This is a long tradition of established imitation. And on top of that, I think this offers something new. This may have signatures of that time period, but the look of having it fill out like the perfect frame, the AI look of it, this is something new. This is a new interpretation of an old tradition. And I find that original. The fact that I've kept this up, I think it's 180 different illustrations through this whole work. And what it does is it brings you more into the story. It grounds the story for you. And there's no artist behind it taking credit for it, saying, look how good I am for drawing this. What this is me as a storyteller saying, hey, look how awesome this story is. And if I give you this picture, it's going to make more sense to you. So that's what the pictures are. They're also great for navigating. If you're flipping through the book, you're like, oh, the picture with the ship, it was on that page. And then you're able to find it. But I did put a couple measures here to kind of make sure that I'm just following the line on this. So the book is priced as if there's no images. It's going to be $20 flat. Normally, books like this go for well over $50, $60, $70. I'm keeping it cheap. I didn't do a Kickstarter, didn't do a Patreon, just keep it simple. Also, all images are released into the public domain, so you can take any of these and use them in your own module, publish them, do anything you want with them. These are not my images. I don't take credit for them. I brought them into the world, but I did not no pen touch paper. Lastly, I'm going to be including an art-free edition that'll be just the text for people. And there are some people who are just remaining neutral, like they kind of want to see what happens with this art thing or the music thing, and they're just sitting by, but I don't want that to be an impediment to enjoying this story. Now, we also have the soundtrack, and this is really interesting. So usually, I don't want to do a lot with AI music. I'm still a guitarist, a singer-songwriter. I like to stick with that. But I did have a wild time over the fall putting this together. Originally, it was just going to be a little bit, soundtracks and background music, but it turned into this huge prog, 99 tracks, 6 hour, and I cut it down from like 300 songs to 99, which kind of fits in the whole like 339966 all throughout the book. It's a lot of numerology going on. But the soundtrack is completely optional. I do give some guidance on some traditional table music. When I did the campaign originally, there's a lot of Uematsu, that's the composer for Final Fantasy, who I consider the greatest living composer on the planet, and there's some information there. And then, as far as I could tell, this is the longest progressive instrumental concept album ever produced, by a fluke. But I did work hard on it, and I did write very long prompts, rather than like the very short prompts you see for a lot of these songs, like that girl who thinks she's Beyonce just because she wrote an 11-word prompt. And I counted. It was 11 words on the prompt she showed on an interview. 11 words for a prompt. That's all she put into that, and then her lyrics. That is not making music. That is a shortcut. And if you get a music deal on that, you're just winning the lottery. This took time and effort, but still, I don't take credit for it the same way I take credit for my singing songwriting on YouTube. That I see as something more sacred. But for the musical influences, it's Nobuo Uematsu, Rick Wakeman, he was in the band Yes, but he did a lot of great stuff with like kind of fantasy prog. He had a Lord of the Rings album, which the Lothlorien track with that was one of the really important tracks when I ran that campaign originally. All right, so 9 discs of 11 tracks each, 99 tracks altogether. Blah, 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 blah. Just very simple. My philosophy is simple. If you're going to publish AI system music, you should also be contributing something of your own. Otherwise, enjoy the tools privately with friends, make art for fun, but be honest about what you're presenting to the world. And this is key right here. Creating a fake avatar and pretending to be the next Beyonce is not the future anyone is asking for. No one wants to listen to music about a bunch of fake avatars. If you're the person who generated it, put your own damn face on it. Say, this is me. You could have a powerful black woman avatar, and then it's just some weird German guy in a basement. It's just, we don't feel comfortable with just having a nobody do this music. It has to be a face behind it. And if it's a character, say it's a character. Like with me, I got the Rebel Castrato. That's the only time I really use the voice in AI. And it's a whole character. It's not me. It's a character. No one wants a avatar Beyonce. We want, real human connection. But that doesn't stop me from playing around with AI music, because it is still very fascinating. Just you got to know your limits. And then lastly, a note on the narrative style. So this is based on the style I developed in Chasing Musashi. I've always been, leaned a little Hemingway on a lot of my writing. But I really like the stripped down storytelling, the elemental images, the imagistic detail. It really makes the story punch. You're really going to feel like you're there. And then, the whole thing is meant to feel cinematic. This module feels like you're going through a movie. There's a lot of big scenes. Even with the branching pathways, it's not like you're railroaded, but it's a big story with big scenes, big twists, just like a movie. All right, so moving on here. The Player's Guide. Okay, stepping into the role. So in this module, the game master is called the Tale Master. I've already mentioned that a few times, but it kind of reflects the spirit of the game, that it's a story. It's not just a bunch of mechanics, So blah, blah, blah. We already covered some of this stuff right here. You can read it purely out of curiosity or as a player. If you're a player, you want to read this section. So what it is important here. So it's a story about what happens after a war ends. It is a campaign of investigation, diplomacy, uneasy alliances, and the lingering scars of conflict. And it's a character-driven journey through a wounded world, a slow-burning mystery involving kings, conspiracies, and ancient magic, and a story where choices and relationships shape the outcome. It's not a classic dungeon crawl or a sandbox or a power fantasy where heroes cannot fail. People can die in this one. All right, 3 unbreakable rules, very important. Respect the Tailmaster, play your character honestly, make decisions as your character. Don't just make it as you would make it. You want to root yourself in the character's flaws and loyalties. And then you build the story together, let other people shine as well. Don't, just take over the table. And a little bit about table stewardship, which comes up a lot. I discussed that a little bit in my paperback video as well. You can check that out. But it's about being a good steward of the campaign, good steward of your character. Kind of, you're handed this character and you care for him like a Tamagotchi almost. All right, so the setup right here. We have 2 land maps here. Hold on, let me get the map here. And this is a rough map. The Tailmaster will kind of set it to themselves, but we have Lucrutia right here as part of the mainland, and they have Thalengard. And they were at war for 10 years. This is the bigger country, and they had major issues with their economy since they had a dwarven plague and wiped out a lot of their trade. And Lucrutia wouldn't reduce the tariffs because they're already getting the best deal among all the other countries, and it just led to a big war. So they've been going at it for 10 years, and now it's been over for a year, but things are not cool with the kingdoms. Thalengard is still just shattered. That's where the whole war happened, was in Thalengard. They hardly even touched Lucrutia. And you're Lucrutian going to Thalengard. So you're part of a diplomatic delegation traveling from Lucrutia to Thalengard. Your official mission is to return the crown of the lost king, which was a symbolic crown that was stolen during the war. And it was like a great wounding that we stole that during the siege of Ringhold. But then, more recently, over the summer, Baldric, he was the king of Thalengard, his ship sank near Alvaron Island on July 13th. And it's rumored that he died on that. He drowned in the shipwreck with all his court. But he came back. And he's been acting really weird these past 3 months, almost as though he's been replaced. So your true mission is to go and figure out what's been going on and see if he's been replaced, maybe. And, I got the Milo right here. Hey, Milo, I'm shooting a video, kitty. Come here. Over here. And of course, Milo's in the story as well. He's Malonius in chapter 2. So anyway, you have to determine whether he is the true king or not, or whether he's been replaced. That's your true mission, but you're going in there on a diplomatic mission, returning the crown. So there's 3 special roles that you start with. Even though you could have up to 7 players in the party, there's 3 special roles for whoever in the party wants them. The one person is going to be the crown bearer. They're also going to deliver a short formal message to King Rama, and they have to memorize that. The treasurer is the one who controls the party's purse. And you start out 40 gold pieces, no personal gold on anyone. And they basically control all the purchasing, who gets what money, when, the bartering. And then you have the archivist. They're the ones basically keep all the notes, and then it's presented to the king at the end. All right, and the character selection here. So we have 7 pre-written characters. You can, make up your own characters if you want, but these ones are written into the story. So it really kind of puts you in there really quickly. And then just a little bit about the tone table. It's serious, but it's not grim dark. I mean, we got the body humor and a lot of the funny stuff. So it's still, it's funny, but it's dark. And a lot of one of the big themes is kind of humor in dark times, Yeah, that's that. All right, now the fun part. Let's talk about the 7 characters we're going to pick from here. And these are all veterans of the war, with the exception of Jorah, who's the young scholar. So we'll just go through this real quick. And then how we start, just to get to know the characters, the boots. So this is a little bit of a unique approach here. But, as Forrest Gump said, my mom always said you could tell a lot about a person by their shoes, where they're going, where they've been. Every road leaves its mark somewhere, so like Roland Arbery's crown guard, thick black leather, stitched by royal armators, blah, blah, blah. Polished out of habit rather than pride. Severina, boots of soft gray leather, no spur, no buckles, no ornament. Nemo, the tracker, barely qualifies as boots is all. Cobble work made from scraps of foxhide rope. Quick, flexible. Jorah, he's the son of a shipwright, so he has the deck boots, sealed against salt water and weather. Devanara, temple military issue, she's the paladin. Romulus, elegant dueling boots, deep brown red, leather so well oiled it reflects firelight like lacquer. And he could be kind of either the rogue or the bard, depending on how you're playing it. And then Jangora, of course, he has the one moment. Go ahead, Milo. He has the big heavy war boots, and he had this thing where he would, whenever he had an enemy officer, he would behead them and then crush their severed heads beneath their weight of the boots. All right, so first up we have Roland the Arbiter. So he was the king's guard to the King Rama. He did 7 years, which is the complete tour of duty for that role. Once you hit 7 years, it's automatic retirement. So what happened with him is during the war, he was sent on a diplomatic mission to Baldric, and the meeting went well, but then as they left, they were ambushed on the king's order. So he basically killed the messenger, and Roland was the only survivor. He got off into the Azure Jungle. So then he was just in the Azure Jungle for 3 weeks, just running from the enemy, got to the coast, escaped, and Baldric never forgot that he survived that. But so I have both his biography and the psychology for every character. So the war hardened him, but the jungle escape marked him in a deeper way. So he has insomnia. He's a little bit unmoored right now since his 7 years are up and he's no longer serving the king. But then he gets called back for this mission, so he feels like he has purpose again. All right, now we have Devanara. So she's basically the paladin character, the warrior monk almost. She serves the Church of the Goddess, and just kind of goes through her involvement in the war. There was 2 major battles at the port of Melman. The first one, which was the Battle of Broken Shoal in year 8, that was Thalengard's only decisive naval victory. And she was the ground support for that while the battle was going on outside the port. And then in the second time they attacked, they prevented a ground assault from coming over using the feared Star Drinker cavalry, which was a technological development during the war that allowed horses to go like 50% faster and run for a lot longer. So you'd have the Star Drinker charge, which is like the charge of Ronan, but about 50%, or Rohan, but about 50% faster. So with her, she's very religious, but battle revealed another side of her. So when she's in the middle of the battle, it's exhilarating. She feels a surge of joy, and she's kind of struggled with that. Like, why am I enjoying this violence so much? And she just wants to make sure that the goddess will show her the difference between holy courage and something darker, So she's kind of battling her demons on that. And then you have Jorah. He's the youngest one. He's the only one that never saw anything in the war. He's the son of a famous shipwright, Loras, who he did great in the war because there's a lot of ships that went down, and someone's got to build the ships again. So Jorah studies School of Chaos, which is basically chaos theory, how complex systems interact. So he followed the dispatches of the war closely, but reading them alongside the older histories created an odd distance in his mind. It's almost like he's seeing the modern day and the old day as though they're all just part of one grand story. And he sees the same mistakes happening, strategies repeating, alliances shifting, commanders making the same mistake their predecessors made generations before. And then he actually predicted that there would be a technological shift that would break the stalemate and reshape the battlefield. Sure enough, in year 5 of the war, the Star Drinker plate appeared on the field. And then his father set him up with his mission because he thought it would be a respectable beginning to his son's career, but the father didn't know the true mission. Only the party members would learn that, and that was determining whether Baldric is still himself or has been replaced. So Jorah has never seen battle. He reads about battles, but he doesn't understand it from the human, like the grief, the cruelty, the exhaustion. They're just abstractions to him. So he's going in there for the first time, essentially. He's never been to Thalengard. He's never seen anyone die. He may never have seen blood other than his own. So that's Jorah. Now Nemo, this is the tragic one. So he's one of the gnomes in the Molly. Let's see if I can kind of show where this is. So this map is actually wrong because there should be tundra up there. But essentially, like right here, it's kind of the pinch point where for the army to move through there, it either goes to there or goes over the mountains. So it's a pinch point. So they set up a lot of traps and everything in the forest, and Thalengard is not able to move through there. They had to go through the Anvil Mountains where the Lacrucians fought defensive battles. They also made it look like there's a lot more larger force in the mountains than there were, so Baldric could not get through. Now in year 7, however, and this is after the Star Drinker plate was introduced, Baldric answered with a surprise of his own. He adapted the Star Drinker armor to smaller, agile horses capable of navigating the tangled forest paths of the Mali region, and he assembled a large cavalry force, and then he struck. And it came during the holiest gnome festival of the year. It was right when the village was mostly sleeping and drunk, and the armored riders just went through and they wiped out like half the village. Nemo was 40 miles north when it happened, and when he returned, he found the only member of his family alive was his youngest son, Riro, 5 years old. The boy had survived by doing exactly what his father had taught him: lie still, smear himself with blood, and breathe without moving. Well, he didn't have any desire to fight after that. He came back to Lucretia and Talos, and then he married another refugee just for, comfort and companionship rather than passion, but she is not Lenora, and he knows it. So, yeah. But yeah, he's more of an out. Like, he doesn't feel comfortable in the city. That's the other thing. Like, he's a wilderness. He's the tracker. He's the ranger. I like the name of the Prickheart. It's the name of his short sword. So John Gora, the Decapitator. So with the dwarves, what happened is there was a huge disease that wiped out like 90% of them. And they were already struggling from low birth rates, where it's like, one girl for every boy, or for 10 boys. So, a single girl might carry the whole fate of a tribe. So what happened was the sickness struck, and he was one of the ones that was immune. I think it was 5% of the dwarves were immune to the dwarven rot, but it only affected dwarves. It didn't affect the elves, the gnomes, the humans. So basically, they're getting wiped out completely, and he's angry. So he joined the war, and yeah, he developed a reputation for a particular ritual. When he killed an enemy officer, he severed their head and crushed it beneath his boot before moving on. To date, 67 heads have met that fate. So later in the war, in the 9th year, he actually went rogue, and he made a big mistake. So he's doing a lot of cool stuff. He's harassing supply lines, ambushing patrols. He got a bunch of his irregular guerrilla fighters. But he really screwed up when the Lucretians were about to attack a camp. And they were going to wait till sunrise so they could have the sun at their backs and have that advantage. But he went and Leroy Jenkins did and just ran in there in the middle of the night and messed up the whole attack. So the King Rama was furious at that. He threw him in jail, and now, like a year later, he's summoned before King Rama to go on this journey. He let out on a pass to do this journey, and if he does this, if he goes on this mission and succeeds, maybe he'll get pardoned. All right, so that is John Gora. And then we have Severina. So she is a diplomat. She goes back and forth between the Fey realm, which is a different world. They have to go through portals, and humans cannot go through that, or else they cannot remain for more than an hour in the Fey realm. So she kind of negotiated the elven reinforcements in the 3rd year with Rama, and she went back and forth, to her king Halibrax and King Rama. So she kind of has a dual loyalty now, going back and forth, and she gets closer and closer to Rama, who she learns to respect. Like, this guy, he's a good king. He's not perfect, but he is ultimately a good king. And she actually starts to fall for him. So this character is secretly in love with the king, but neither of them spoke it, and it just kind of sits there, unspoken. All right, so in year 9, she went to an elven outpost and found that everyone was dead because they had poisoned the water supply. She barely got out of there, but after that, Rama kept her away from the front because he recognized her political potential after the war. But now her loyalty is divided between Halibrax and Rama, and she's worried that if they ever go to war, their interests differ, she'll be torn between the two. So far, the two loyalties have aligned. She knows they may not always. All right, now Romulus. So Romulus the bastard. So he was born in Talos to a tailor whose beauty once caught the attention of a young king. So this is one of the bastard children of King Rama. Like I said, he isn't perfect, but he did care for him. He was never able to, name him as his own. There's political barriers to that. You can't claim the bastard. It just turns into a big thing. But he made sure he was taken care of, even after his mother and stepfather were executed in Thalakard for a seditious play. Kind of looked after him. There's probably some money going to him. And then Romulus, of course, has several children of his own in Thalangard villages. The bastard that makes bastards. And then later on, he was approached to actually assassinate the king for 500 gold. He accepted the gold but killed the messenger and then went to tell Rama about it. And at that same time, that's when Rama put him on this mission. Yeah, so that is the final character, Romulus. Now, for the mission charter. So basically, we have the mission charter. This is the document that you'll show at checkpoints. It kind of says what your mission is, that you're charged to return the crown of the lost queen. You're going to have 12-day diplomatic visas, which you have to buy in Alvaran Island for 2 gold each. And then the second thing here is the speech of King Rama. So this is the speech that the crown bearer has to memorize and deliver during the meeting with King Baldric in chapter 5. So you just memorize this right here. But then we have the secret mission. And this is where Rama talks about the night the Sylvianara sank near Alvaran Island. Baldric was bored, and now there sits a man in a ring-hold wearing his face, giving orders, swearing his oaths. So he wants to know if this is truly Baldric. So it's a confirmation. All right, yep. And you will be my blades if need be. And this will kind of send you on that mission to Thalengard. War is not a contest of steel, but of patience. Steel breaks first. Let the children eat steel before they eat surrender. And then just for a little bonus right here. So this is some of the optional content in the very back of the book. This is the body details. Got the queen with 3 flowers right here. So yeah, that's kind of how it looks with it's like a little, scroll that would roll up, kind of a secret little scroll. So, yep. So that is the Drowned King of Player's Guide. I'm just waiting on a test printing right now, and then, yeah, and then we'll be good to publish. I'll keep you posted right here. Thanks for listening.